I'm actually in law school. It's something we didn't talk about, but I'm actually in law school. I'm 46 years old and I'm in law school. I'll be in law school for another year and a half. It's about a 4 to 5 year project that I put under because I'm passionate about stuff like that mine specifically related to business and to veterans. But the more I sit in here, the more I realize the way the system operates. And it's one thing to be an angry citizen, and by all means, be an angry citizen, voice your opinion, do stuff. But I felt led for myself, like guys like you that just stand up and go, you know what, I'm not born a city council member. And what I was amazed when I began to meet more city council members is the amount of the experience of it outside of the actual writing things and doing the administration of it is the experience of being a human being, because you never stop being a human being. But once you become a city council member, you become the target for a whole slew of just verbal abuse and blame and cynicism, and it can become a drain.
It's interesting.
It's a challenge.
I ignore a lot of
But it does happen.
Oh, it does.
I tell people, the minute you get into office, just know half the people are going to hate you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a general.
Yeah, they're like, there's just nothing you can do about it. But the fact is, you had to stop and step outside of yourself. Here's my busy life, and then there's this, and nobody's feeding their family, nobody's keeping the lights on a city council member's. It's more like an honorarium than it is a salary.
But
but it's that contribution, and you'll notice that contribution, if people look closely, that commitment to service permeates your life. Mm-hmm. Because there's no other reason why you would be operating in Sierra Leone and Kenya if it wasn't just this heart commitment to follow through on the calling.
Right,
and then to step on being a council member and be like, I'm not going to make a dime off of this thing, and half the people are going to hate me, and I'm going to have to sort through emails or go to city council meetings and have somebody hijack my time, take me to the side, and tell me how the horse should eat the hay and all the things that I'm doing wrong.
Right.
You just get it, and I have a world of respect. And so my place is going into the legal field.
That's awesome.
And you see the world from how, like, I spent my summer 1 year down at David L. Moss in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a local jail, which is one of the ICE facilities, yes, and having just intimate conversations with people that are in prison or going into prison or being deported or whatever the case is, wherever they are in their cycle. I talked to one guy that came from Pakistan and could tell me all about ISIS and the threats and the people that got shot in the knees, and the fact that his family is in hiding, and just to look in his eyes and see him crying because his daughter is in hiding, and that if this doesn't work out. And he told me that he flew from his country, like he went from one country to another country, which then led him to South America, because that's where he could get a visa to go in temporarily. And then he walked on his own 2 feet from South America to the American-Mexican border. Mm-hmm. No transportation. He walked through the jungle because he had to stay in hiding. And it's just profound to realize at the end of the day, it's easy to hide people when they're in newspapers. It's another thing when you're looking at them and you get a heart for this stuff, like your friend, because you see the good in him. Yeah. And he's done this thing that you don't approve of, but you're good. And while it's not your fault, in some way it is your responsibility, because we're housing him. We're paying to house him. We're paying to do these other things. Mm-hmm. And can we somehow get in front of that and contribute to children in school or other people, to give them other options, to give them other resources? It's very easy to get a paradigm going where it's a scarcity mindset. And it all goes back to the Bible. And what do you think? A scarcity mindset where you run out of resources and it becomes like us versus them, which becomes, you see it play out when people say American versus non-American. Or when you see, when you take on this global paradigm of we're all in this together, it's all the us, isn't it? You don't see an us versus them. It's not your fault that they're struggling in Sierra Leone, but you've made it part of your responsibility to contribute to the answer, because in some way you are connected to them. Mm-hmm. And so you can actually thrive in your life's purpose by helping somebody else thrive in theirs. And it doesn't take away anything from what you're doing.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't threaten you in any way. No. The more better he does, more power to you.
Absolutely. Well, and I knew I'd like you, Anthony. But, and it's that abundance mentality, because your goal, your objective is to help and serve people to become the best versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. And to see that impact. Like, I can't even tell you, there's men that I look up to, and women that I look up to that are in my life, and I see just the spider web.
Yeah.
My mentors that taught me how to do construction and how to buy real estate in the first place was all cash. I didn't learn until about 6 years ago. You can actually like leverage.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you. If we rotate back to real estate, how I got started in it.
Yeah. So we will get back around to that. So, sorry, I got stuff down there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I need to clean my studio, people. I've been out here for a while, but you know, the one thing I loved about him is he's the man. He is the number one man that I most admire in this world, and he's 82, and he taught me how to survive. He taught me how to live, how to make a living, how to support my family. But what I love about that man is that he built his entire company with zero business card, zero asking for a dollar, zero asking for a job. What he did is he built relationships.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're going to get me on a soapbox. It's going to be all day.
And and I caught on to that with what you were talking about. That's what it's about. You know, I tell people all the time, real estate is a people business. It's not a house business.
The business of businesses is people, and the language they speak is in money. That's why my first idea is to shatter this idea of the Lone Ranger on a saddle, you know, toughen it out. You're not a silo. People say, like, what's the first thing I should study? What's this? Where's the tax sales? Where's this other thing? You forget all of that. Forget it. And they're like, oh, which real estate agent should I call? Which tax attorney? They're looking for names like they're pegs on a board. And I'm like, you get to the heart of a relationship. Literally, our business is transformed through relationships. Yes. It is everything. It is the first thing that I start with people, relationships. If you have an us versus them mentality, it's going to permeate when you walk into a relationship. When you do something, it's going to influence the way that we it's just so important.
We're not going to talk. There's tons of that stuff, and there's a conversation I had with somebody yesterday that I was willing to have because we both have the same mentor. Yeah. But we run in different circles, so I was very hesitant on having a conversation. And I hate that I had those feelings and those thoughts and all that stuff. And I don't care if Austin, if you see this, it's about you, and you know it's you. But I love him because my mentor loves him, and we've both been meeting with the same guy for years. It's just the people that I learned from and the people that he learns from there's a different mentality. Yeah, you know, and different reputations. Yeah, and we each chose those directions as well as other people. You know,
you walk your own path in life.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's okay. Yeah. You know, because we're all going to go through, we're going to learn from this, you know, and if you choose not to be in those circles and you choose not to be around those people, you can burn bridges and go. You know, it depends on what your purpose is. Yeah.
I really start with people, and I tell them, I start with questions. Everything starts with questions. Absolutely. And it based there. People make statements. They're like,
question askers we are.
Oh, all day. Oh, you're going to get me on like I'm getting chills because I just get passionate about it. Because people make statements. They'll say, oh, coronavirus sucks, or this sucks, or these people are this way, or they make these declaratory statements and it just stops them. And it's like, well, if you change the nature of your question and you're like, okay, what can I do that could make this relationship better? What can I do that would make where we would both thrive? I remember one day I had a tenant, and him and I were talking about something because I chat with tenants and do different things. And we were talking about acceptance in life. And I said, you know, like I really try to be accepting of people in life. And he said, you know what? I take it one step further. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I go into something until I know why they love it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, so for example, we were talking about I took a couple of drum lessons because I wanted to see what it was like in the world of a drummer. So I took a couple of drum lessons. That wasn't my jam. So I moved on. And he said, no, I go into something till I understand truly why they love it. And I was, well, what does that mean? And so, like, for example, he was talking about, in his case, it was Native American art. He could see it, but he was like, just wasn't his thing. So he just didn't even take it on his radar. He said, so what I started to do was I truly started to study Native American art. And I kept going until the aha came to me one day. And I sat there and it was like, oh my gosh, I love this picture. And I never thought about it that way. I said, this is interesting. Let me just see. So I actually happened to have a class at law school that took me into a hallway. It's the only hallway in the school that actually had Native American art in there. And as I walked past it, it was just something I never even noticed on the wall, but I started to pay attention to it. And then I would stand in front of the picture and I would look at it and I asked the question, you know, basically, where's the love in this picture? What was the artist trying to tell me? What was the thing? By the end of the semester, I could have gotten arrested for theft because I was in love with all the pictures on the wall and I wanted to take them home. But I was like, I get it. And it's the same thing that you can find something, just finding this way to connect with somebody, even if it's somebody you don't like, why does somebody love this person? What can I do to make this relationship better? So you look at, like you and that guy, like what can we create?
Yeah.
But I look at these relationships. I'm not in love with everybody I do business with. It's just never going to, I mean, if you think that's going to happen, let me strike that illusion from you. Right. It's just not going to happen for anybody. But in getting into real estate, I came into real estate with almost zero money. Several people kind of got introduced through the Carlton Sheets kind of thing. Years ago, you get the Carlton Sheets package of, no money down kind of thing. Listen to the audiobook. But it's more than techniques and manuals, because if you don't have the belief system that it's for you, it's dead in the water. You're never going to do it. And that's what happened. I could see the techniques, but I had an answer to the question, what about me? And it was like, no. He can do it, but I can't do it. I didn't challenge the technique. I just challenged me. And this is why I think a lot of people aren't in real estate, or they get stuck on the fence, because they get stuck studying techniques, but they don't answer the question, is the abundance for me? Am I permitted to thrive in this? What's here for me? And so I sat on it for years, didn't do anything with it. And then one day I wrote a note down. I was like, I'm going to buy a house in the next 90 days with no money down. I just wrote it down. Is this what I'm going to do? I burned that bridge on myself. Like, no, this is for me and I'm going to do it. And I'd forgotten about that piece of paper. Lo and behold, through the way things work in relationships, I'm introduced to a real estate agent who says, and I told him, I was like, I haven't bought a house before. I can't get a credit card at Home Depot or the big box stores, but I want to buy a house. So we go out and we look at this house, and he comes back a week later and he goes, oh, I have a house. The owner's willing to finance it for you. Now, I've never purchased a house before. I have zero experience. Can't get a credit card at Lowe's.
Like, what does this mean?
What does it mean? So, they wanted something under certain terms that I wasn't willing to do. And I was like, I'm going to try to negotiate. And so I threw out an offer, and they threw one back, and we settled on a deal. And I bought my first house for $5,000 down, owner financed at like some percentage rate for a certain period of times that made it functional for me. It was my first house, and I got into it. Well, somehow you find this thread, because then all of a sudden somebody else came to me with another house, owner finance. Yep. And I'm like, I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to do this, but here they come, because now I believe that it's possible. Yeah. And then I got another one. They kept coming. And at some point I killed the magic, because I listened to somebody who said, oh, these things aren't possible. And then suddenly it was like the magic shut off. Because I bought into the belief that it wasn't possible, even though I had the evidence of 2 acquisitions under these terms. And when I sat at the table with the lady who was selling me the first house, and I still have her phone number, and I said, why did you do this? Because I believed what I wanted was the same thing that she wanted. And she, I didn't learn to see the world through somebody else's eyes. And she said, because if I take your money, I have to put it in the bank, and I'm going to make 1% interest, or less than 1% interest. This way, I have $30,000 secured by an asset, and I'm making 7% interest. I realized that what I needed was not what she needed. And she bet on the horse. She bet on the jockey, not the horse. She looked at me and she was like, you seemed like a nice guy who was just trying to get a start. Mm-hmm. And then years later, as it would turn out, in the thread of negotiation, I owed her, let's say, $20,000. And I decided to throw out a text message. It was like, hey, I know I owe you $20,000, but I've got some cash coming up. Maybe I can toss you $10,000 and we can settle the account. I figured I'd give it a try. And I was kind of scared when I did it.
The question,
because I learned that if you're not nervous about the offer you're making, you're offering too much. But that's another philosophy. I figured, you know what? I'm just going to try. Yeah, hey, and I kind of made a sandwich. Man, thank you so much for giving my start in this business. It's been the world to me. You can absolutely say no to this, but it's always worth asking. What if I paid this? And she said, well, as life turns out, I need some money. I can't do $10,000, but I can do $16,000. So in 3 text messages, she chopped $4,000 off of what I owed her. I paid her that money and saved it just from asking.
Plus interest.
Plus the interest, and was able to change it because I refinanced it through a bank, and it lowered the interest rate, and it lowered, but just from a couple of text messages. But that's how I got started in there. And we made a leap later on. It's a longer story. But in essence, when I got with my partner, I said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to focus on buyers, sellers, and lenders, or money sources. I don't want to just pigeonhole us into lenders, because then that becomes like banks. And I said, no, I want money sources, because money sources would be other investors, joint ventures, things like that. Buyers, sellers, money sources. So he goes out and he finds a seller. I said, go out, find a seller who's on the back end of his investing career and just wants to do the same thing of owner finance. He comes back about 2 weeks later and he says, I got a deal for you. I got X amount of houses for $500,000. He'll take 10% down. which is $50,000. I need $75,000 so that I can fix the houses. I need another $25,000 so I can fix the houses. I'll give you 15% interest and 49% interest in the deal as a whole. So he'll pay 15% return, 49%. This deal done. And I wrote him a check. And then we bought more houses. And then we ended up buying a bunch more houses from this guy, and he owner financed them, amortized it over 30 years or something like that, charged us higher than market rate on the note, and we couldn't persuade him because he wasn't a desperate seller. He was a powerful seller. He saw an opportunity, and it worked for him and it worked for us. And the benefit of that situation was that it got us started and talk about relationships. We went to the bank. The bank didn't want to look at us, right? 6 months down the road. Well, it turns out that the guy that we owner financed the house from had relationships in the banking industry, made a couple of phone calls, and the banks that we got turned down from, we then got a red carpet treatment in, which transformed the entire relationship because they looked at us differently because we were being recommended by the guy who currently had $750,000 on a note to us. And that transformed our relationship, which opened the doors to all kinds of things. I mean, we're now looking at hotels, apartment complexes. I'm flying out to Arizona again to do a multi-unit mastermind. My partner is looking at a hotel in some small town, but this is all about relationships. Because when I get vague on details, it's not that I'm trying to hide anything. I literally don't know it because this is what partnership is. I do my part, they do their part, and they go get it. And what I've been told today is we're looking at an apartment here, we're looking at a hotel over here, we want to convert it into veteran housing for something else, part of these larger mission things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And other people do this. Part of the RIA. Some of the RIA is run by volunteers and partnerships. People come to us all the time. How can I participate? If there's a real authentic connection there and we can add value to their life, by all means, here's what we have. Here's what we're doing. And a lot of the RIA is run by people who participate free of charge in exchange for learning some of the wisdom just to be in partnership and relationship.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, man. And you're providing value for value.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, like I'm not going to use anybody. If I can't do an honest value for you, we're going to pass.
Yeah. Well, and just like, I tell people all the time, are you using your time, talent, or your treasure? And how are you utilizing those? Other people say time, energy, and money. But I had my first talk that a friend of mine let me go to his group and talk, which opened up the doors for Kenya and, speaking to people from 14 different countries and being this crazy white guy with a whole bunch of Africans, interviewing them on stage. It's so funny. So I have different relationships with people from all over Africa. And whenever they come here or we visit with them, we make people uncomfortable. Because we can just have a different relationship and conversation. So it's hilarious. I was actually talking to somebody about that this morning. But, providing value and more than you could ever imagine paying for.
Oh, gosh.
That's the key in life for me. I'm going to serve you, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to do everything I can to serve you beyond what you could ever pay me for because I care for your success.
So I have some beliefs. Everybody forms these beliefs. And so people use the word, like you go to Facebook and everybody's your friend. And I was like, no. I have a different relationship. Best. And I'm glad you used that word because I looked at the two and I said acquaintance and friends. And I would be coaching people all the time and they were like, I have this friend that treats me like garbage. And I'm like, you need to retitle that person to a person in your life because they're not a friend. Because in my world, that's not how a friend treats another friend.
I mean, yeah.
So but the friend, the concept or the title of friend compels them to behave and allow certain behaviors that I just wouldn't permit in my life. But I have a definitional difference between acquaintance and friends. An acquaintance is somebody that you're aware of. Informational exchanges. I know your name. I know this. We're kind of cordial on a certain level. A friend is somebody in my world who you're better for your time together. You are committed to improving each other. And that informs my decision when I relate to people. If I want to make you a friend, I walk in the door committed to something about you, whatever. I bring everything I can to the table and I'll have an honest conversation that if I spot something, I'm not your barstool buddy. I am not going to sit there and just be like, you have a hard life. I'm going to punch you in the shoulder. Get up. I'm going to kick you in your butt when you're on the floor. Get back up. Look at the difference. Keep moving forward. Like I just can't. And that's how I see friendships, and that's what I kind of demand in my stuff. And I'll admit I can take it to an extreme and be very intense. But in essence, my wife went into business. She made it to the Inc. 500. I'm in law school because of these relationships. Like my wife and I, that's my primary relationship in life. And she challenged me. We were in an Airbnb in Austin, Texas, and she found out that one of my undergrad professors had said that he pulled me aside one day. He's like, Tony, do you ever think about going into law school? And I was like, sir, you don't know how dumb I am. I appreciate the vote of confidence. That means a lot to me, but that's not my thing. I could never do that. I took his name. I took his bar number. He was like, no, I really want to help you get into law school. And I kept that kind of as like a note to myself, like somebody believed in me. Mm-hmm. But I folded it up and I kept it for years. She found out about it. She said, why don't you go? I can't. We have kids. We have businesses. We have these other things. And she said, if you don't try, it's always going to bother you. You didn't even try. You just gave up. You weren't told no. You don't even know if you're good enough. And she doesn't remember it. And you can bleep out the expletive that's about to come. But she basically said, if you don't do it now, you're just being chicken. Mm-hmm. And it was like she knew how to commit, how to talk to me. She knew how my buttons. And I was like, did my wife just call me this thing? And I could feel the transformation happening as it started to build. Like, is this a possibility? And I committed to one tiny little thing. I'll look at the application. Then I'll fill out my name on the application. Then I'll take one thing. Then I'll tell somebody. And I started telling people I'm going to try out for law school. Yep. And then once I started sharing it with other people and they started looking at me, it started to become my identity. And instead of kind of timidly reaching out, it became this momentum behind me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have to keep moving forward. One step forward, one step forward, one step forward. I about collapsed, and I kept thinking at every turn, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to make it. And I remember when the university called me up after I did an interview, and they said, not only would we like to welcome you into law school, but we'd like to give you a scholarship for a portion of your stuff.
Yes, please.
But here I am, taking this journey.
Are you going to TU?
Yes, sir, I am.
Right on. My friend went there, so
proud of it. Enjoyed the experience. I could not speak more highly. It was just absolutely to take something that is a meat grinder. Law school is a brutal meat grinder. It is a transformative experience. The thing that happened for me is that law school is not about the words on a page in a book. Law school for me has been a personal transformation about how to ask better questions about who I am in society and in the world, how I show up, how does the world operate. If you want to, you just see how nations interact, how rules, how international laws are made. The experience that you have as a city council member, because you're in charge of and you are participating in the rulemaking process at the local level. But what people might not know is you don't have training in the rulemaking process. You don't understand some of the rules, the way that, rules, you think they're just writing things on paper. But how do they operate inside of a system, in a larger system? What happens if you miss a certain word? What are some of the constitutional implications that you were willing to stand up to go to bat as you were as a person? I mean, it's just a powerful thing when I see guys like you that do that. They're like, I'm going to take my swing at this because I care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been there for a decade, which is crazy. Yeah, I know, right? I'm the youngest by a decade, too.
So. Wow. So you got some staying power then.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a flash in the pan, I'm going to do one thing.
Yeah, the mayor's like me. It was a thing that I wanted to do. My dad ran for office, I can't tell you how many times, for rep or for senate or whatever. He never won. So before my dad died, he got to see me sworn in as a council member. So,
oh my gosh, what a gift.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I almost ran for the same seat that he ran for in 1976 in 16. I was this close.
On a side note, that's kind of the windshield thoughts on how children are raised and what they become, because you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with, and you see these important role models in your life. And I find it to be no small coincidence that your father fought again, which is very noble, even in the face of adversity and losing the seat, tried again and again and again and again and again, and you took up the torch.
Well, I did, and there's some things that they did that I'm really proud of them. They fought for the term. Oklahoma has the most strict term limits in the entire country for Senate and House. The only reason why they can charge up to 5% increase on taxes in Oklahoma on property is because of my dad and the people that he worked with. So they did a lot of behind the scenes stuff through initiative petitions and things like that. And they did it all over the country. But really proud of those things. But man, our time is done for right now, dude. But I'm just gonna bring my stuff up there and we'll just go up there to y'all studio.
Oh yeah,
hang out. What's up? Because we can sit here for hours.
Yeah, yes, no,
So,
it's been a privilege.
Well, man, thank you so much for coming on, and tell us how people can find you.
Oh well, my name's Anthony Agostino. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Tulsa-ria. What's that? Yeah, the Tulsa-ria, and that for those that know, that's the Real Estate Investors Association. Mm-hmm. And I guess reach out through you. I guess we'll stay connected and do that, and likewise.
Yeah, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff through Outside the Box and Equipping Leaders Network. That way you guys can find me and Anthony and our friends, and you guys
make
can
it work.
Type them in. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.